Dear student viewers, now we are going to discuss the second session on the poem Before the Altar by Amy Lowell, a minor woman poet in America. In the last period, we discussed about the poet and her contribution to American English literature in brief, and we discussed the poem by going through the lines of the text, and we explained each and every line of the text, and out of that we could understand how that poem has two parts. One is in the poet's voice, another is in devotee's voice. The first part is the presentation of the picture of devotee, the condition of devotee. The next part is the prayer submitted by the devotee himself. So we discussed that in detail, going line by line in the text. Now, let us move on to the discussion on the same poem to enable you as the students to analyze the poem as to answer the critical questions. To answer analytical questions, because you are supposed to write the answers pages together. You are supposed to write the short answers also. For that you have to get an idea how to take the points, how to take some of the ideas from the poem to explain them into an essay type answer or into a short note. So that is one intention. Another is to make you able to annotate the lines. Okay, so what kind of lines would be possibly asked in the examination, and how these lines have to be annotated in the examination, that we shall discuss in this session. See, what kind of essay type questions would be asked in the exam? Describe how the poor devotee is standing before the goddess and what his prayer is. So here you have to observe the person, devotee, what kind of a person. I mean, the picture of that devotee or the character sketch of that devotee has to be analyzed here, has to be presented in your answer. And what prayer he presents, what prayer he submits to the God standing before that altar. Okay, so this is the subject, this is the summary of your answer. See the next question. How does the poor devotee submit himself before the altar to his goddess? So he stands on his knees. He kneels before that altar and he presents his prayer. And what all he presents in his prayer, that we have to analyze, we have to explain. And that would also be an answer in 1.5 a page or 2 pages. Okay, whatever the different points of views you can choose, you can pick out of the poem to analyze your answer in pages, in 2 pages or 1.5 a page or 3 pages, even more. Poor devotee, what kind of devotee he is and what is his condition and what is his predicament, and all that is presented by the speaker poet in the first half of the poem. And out of that first half of the poem, we have to pick up some of the details of the prayer, the devotee, and he has to be sketched. His character has to be sketched. Okay, that is one thing. And what prayer he presents, and what that prayer contains, and what offerings he offers to the God, and all is there in the poem. Yesterday we discussed, in the last session we discussed. And see here that being poor, but he is honest one. It is his quality, and he admits that he has come before the God empty-handedly. He has brought nothing, and he is ready to sacrifice himself. He has not brought anything, but he is ready to sacrifice himself, and he is ready to burn his own heart in that urn in which some of the offerings already put down by some of the earlier rich devotees, and that is being burnt. In that burning urn, he is ready to pour his heart, and he is tired of his life's struggle. He ties all his dreams and sends them on moon. He tries to present, he offers his dreams through his poetry, through his words of poetry, and he wants to send them through the moonbeams to the God, because he believes that God is not there on the altar, that God is so high in the air, in the sky, and to that height he has to send his offerings. He makes use of his poetry as a vehicle to send his offerings to that God. By the end of the poem, we see something horrible, something pitiable, that he pours his heart into the burning urn, and he demands the God to stand unmoved and see how that heart is being burnt. So he challenges the God. He demands the God to stand and unmoved and see how his heart is being burnt. So this is some of the details like this you will have to take. Okay, I would like to give you an idea by giving three important things, three important factors. By taking three important factors out of this poem, I would like to explain that factors with different points. Okay, you need not take them down now, because all these will be covered in the study material. There you can refer them. Here we see three important factors. One is devotee as a person, devotee as an individual, how he is, what is his condition, and what kind of a person he is. It is one part. So it is one part, one factor that you have to pick out of this poem. And the second one is his devotion, what kind of devotion he has, how his devotion is different from the other devotees. So that is there in his prayer. And the third factor is prayer. What is his prayer? What he offers to the God, all those are listed in the poem. What is his prayer? In his prayer, what he demands for. In his prayer, what he submits. What is his petition to the God. And that factor we have to, that issue we have to discuss here. Okay. So taking these three important points, let us discuss. The first one, devotee. Here, the devotee has his own qualities, has his own traits. as a person, he has his own personality, he has his own social status, his own condition. So let us see what kind of a person this devotee is, how he is different from other devotees. That's why in the last session on this poem, I began with Basavanna's Vachana, ಉಳ್ಳವರು ಶಿವಾಲಯವ ಮಾಡುವರು ನಾನೇನು ಮಾಡಲಯ್ಯ ಬಡವನಯ್ಯ ಎನ್ನ ಕಾಲೇ ಕಂಬ ಎನ್ನ ದೇಹವೇ ದೇಗುಲ ಎನ್ನ ಶಿರವೇ ಹೊನ್ನ ಕಳಸವಯ್ಯ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮದೇವ ಸ್ಥಾವರ ಕಳಿವುಂಟು ಜಂಗಮ ಕಳಿವಿಲ್ಲ. That is also translated by A.K. Ramanujan. The rich will make temple for Shiva, what can I a poor do? My legs are the pillars and my body the shrine and my head the cupola of gold. O Lord of the meeting rivers, standing shall fall and moving shall stay. So this vachana is so comparable to the condition of this devotee. Let us see what kind of a man this devotee is. This devotee is a poor man by status, by economic condition. He is very poor, so poor that even he doesn't have sufficient food for his belly. He even doesn't have sufficient food for his belly. And he is innocent fellow because he never hides anything. He presents everything, he expresses everything in front of the God. He is so innocent. He doesn't hide anything. So this is another important quality of this devotee. He stands before the God with empty hands. Okay, he himself comes in front of the God and says that I have not brought anything, I have come over here empty-handedly. So he has come there without any offerings in his hands. But usually whoever goes to the temple, whoever goes to the God, they will present some of the offerings to the God, and it is because in turn they demand something from the God. In turn they will ask for something from the God. But this fellow is so clear that he never asks for anything. That's why he hasn't brought anything, and that too he doesn't have that capacity of bringing anything because he is poor. He has nothing to present before the God. And he is fire-souled and vermilion-hearted. He has come here fire-souled. What condition he is in? This phrase will tell us greater than these words tell. These words tell us greater than these words tell. It means fire-souled means that poverty is burning him. That fire burning in the urn is burning the offerings put into that urn by the other devotees. But this fellow is being burnt every day in the fire of poverty. His soul is being burnt, fire-souled. So this is his condition. And vermilion-hearted means his heart is bleeding. That vermilion, which is the red powder that will be put on the God's statue, that is here the blood that is bleeding out of his heart because of this poverty, because of his pain of poverty, because of the wound of poverty. That wound is not an ordinary wound. That wound is on the heart of this devotee himself. And he lives on alms. He doesn't have sufficient food even to fill his belly full. That's why he has not brought anything. So what these rich devotees spend on the offerings to the God, with that much he lives with that much he lives, how is it possible for him to present the offerings to the God then? So it is impossible, because he lives on alms. So such a poor fellow he is, such a fellow having nothing as his property. Then love and poverty are his treasures, or his love and poverty are his treasures. Love and poverty are his assets. They are his property. And he lives with that love. He lives with that poverty. He has learned to live with that poverty. He has learned to retain his love for life, or love for society, love for others. And that has made him to live so happily, though he is very poor. On the thorny path of life, he is leading his life. On the thorny path means here everywhere he happens to see the sharp tips of the needles. Those are everywhere on the path of his life, and he gazes them so bitterly, because it is very, very tough for him to walk upon them. Every now and then he will get bleeding on his feet. And then he is a unique theist. He believes in the God. He believes in the existence of God. But he doesn't believe as all other devotees believe. He believes in a way, in a different way, that he is a unique theist. That's why he is a unique theist, because he believes in God, but he doesn't believe as all others believe. He believes in God according to his own idea. So he in the beginning tells that, O God, simmering, you are shining, but you are not there on this altar. You are not there on this altar, but you are so high in the air, he says. You are so high in the air. It means he never believes that I have stood before the altar where the God is. He never believes that. He believes the God is not there on the altar, that God is there so high in the air. And that's why he wants to send his offerings to the God through some vehicle. What vehicle he uses, later we can see. So this is the condition of the devotee. Okay, this is one important thing that we have to observe out of this poem. Now the second one, devotion. What kind of devotion he expresses? What kind of devotion he is known for? That is also very important. How his devotion differs from the devotion of other devotees. Because other devotees come with lots of offerings, and they will pour them into the urn and burn them to send so high to the God through the smoke. But he has not brought anything, because his belief is something different. His devotion is something different. His devotion is not the devotion of others. His devotion is something different one, because he believes that God doesn't expect anything from me as a devotee. Like John Milton's On His Blindness. Just you go through the text of that On His Blindness, there some of the lines will tell us that God never expects anything from you, but it is your duty. If you stand in the queue to serve if you stand in the queue and wait for the chance to serve the God, that itself is the great service to the God. That Milton tells. If you don't get the chance to serve the God, Just you stand in the queue and wait till the time comes. If that time doesn't come, you need not worry. That standing and waiting for the service of the God itself is the great service to the God, and that the God appreciates, and that's why you need not worry that the God never expects anything from you. And He knows that, and that's why His devotion is something different from the devotion of other devotees. He is a devotee, but he doesn't have any fear of God. He is unafraid. He is fearless of God. Usually, all the common devotees show their devotion to the God out of fear. All common devotees worship the God out of fear. But this devotee is different because he doesn't have any fear. He doesn't have any fear, and that's why he has come here without bringing any offering to him. And what he offers? He has nothing to offer. He doesn't have money. He doesn't have any treasure. He doesn't have anything that the rich people have. That's why he comes empty-handedly. Still, he wants to offer something to the God. What he offers? That is a kind of devotion he has. He offers his varying life, his tired life, his poor life, his painful life, his life of sufferings, his life of grievance, his life of struggle. He wants to offer to the God. And how he wants to offer it to the God? Not by burning it into the urn, but by writing poetry and with the vehicle of imagination. He wants to send his emotions and feelings and dreams of life to the God, because that vehicle of poetry is imagination, and that can travel from any world to any world. And the other offerings that he offers, one is tired life, varying life. And in that tired life he has been living even today. He has been breathing even today because of his courage. He wants to offer that courage. And while he was living in that horrible life, he has suffered a great loss. Even that loss he wants to offer to the God. And he wants to offer to the God his hopes turned into fears. His hopes turned into fears. He offers that also to the God. And he offers laughter turned into tears. Sometimes he had also some laugh, some happiness, some joy. But immediately that laughter, that joy, that happiness turned into sadness, sorrow. Because of that, he could get tears out of his eyes. And then, at last, ultimately, what else he could present as offerings to the God? That is, the man who has been shredded into pieces. He has been just an useless fellow at last because of his poverty, because of his loss he has suffered, because of his strife of life, because of his hopes turned into fears, because of his laughter turned into tears. He has become a shredded remnant of a man. He has become ragged cloth like. He has become a ragged cloth. Means that has been torn into pieces, which would become useless at last. Like such useless thing he has become. And then finally he wants to burn his heart, pouring it into the urn. Finally he wants to burn his heart, pouring it into the urn. but he prays the God. This is the prayer. See what he prays for. He prays for nothing. He prays for nothing, and that's why he is not only empty-handed, he is silent. Those who come with handful of offerings, they demand handful of grants, handful of blessings from the God. But this fellow has come in front of the God empty-handedly, and that's why he never asks for anything. He remains silent. He never asks for anything. He remains silent. And he prays the God. For what? Oh God, I pray you not to give me anything. I pray you without demanding anything from you, but I pray you as I pour my heart to be burnt in the urn. You stand unmoved and watch till the last second, last minute, that the heart will be completely burnt. So this is the prayer that he compels the God. He compels the God, he demands the God to stand unmoved, watching his heart poured into the urn to be burnt. So the God, I think God has no courage to watch it, because as he presents himself as a poor innocent man, God feels ashamed of himself, because such an innocent fellow, that I have kept him so poor. How can I watch his heart being burnt in the urn as an offering to me? So it is very, very difficult even for the God to stand unmoved and watch how that heart of that poor devotee is being burnt in the urn. So only another demand he makes, that he wants to have a piteous look from him. He wants to have a look in charity, a look of God in charity for him. Only that much he demands from the God. And that prayer has that petition, that to give a look in charity towards this poor devotee. And these are the three important things you will have to pick out of this poem that helps you to analyze this poem in these three steps. Okay, I think you could understand this poem fully now. Let me move on to another important item, that is of annotations. Any line from the poem can be taken for annotations in the examination. So for example, here some lines are taken. You see, from the altar bathed in moonlight, the smoke rose straight in the quiet night. See, these two are the last two lines. These are very, very important. What you have to do here, you have to do this much. You have to find out these two lines. You have to write in the examination into putting them into inverted comma, because whatever a piece of line is taken from the text of a poem, that has to be kept within inverted commas. Okay, so these are the last two lines of the poem. You have to write these two poems, and there you have to say these lines are taken from the poem Before the Altar. This poem is written by Amy Lowell, these are the last two lines of the poem. These lines occur as the last two lines of the poem. So that is the location of the poem, location of the lines in the poem. And then what do they mean, and how that meaning can be connected to the earlier part of the poem, how it contributes to the total theme of the poem. That's very important, because you see in these two lines you may imagine, okay, you may ponder over that from the altar bathed in moonlight. See, from the altar bathed in moonlight, the last two lines, it is the night time, that altar is upon the altar that moon has thrown its light, and on the altar there is an urn in which some of the offerings are being burnt, and out of that urn the smoke is rising. Okay, the smoke rose straight in the quiet night, and in that burning urn he has poured his heart, and even that heart is also being burnt. So this is his final stage of life. That is picturesquely given in these two lines, and that's why his great sacrifice is shown in the last two lines, and that has to be explained in your annotation. In the same way, you have to go for other lines and identify. To identify the lines, as to know from which poem these lines are taken, you have to go through the text of the poem repeatedly for many times, so that the lines will become familiar to you, and it would be easy for you to identify the lines. As well, you have to remember so perfectly the poet's name and the title. You have to write it without even a spelling mistake. Okay, that would become a very good annotation, and you can score a very good number of marks. I think this would be sufficient for the poem before the altar. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.